Hey Most Amazing Top 10 family, I'm your host Jay Durant and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Who needs a house when you can walk off into the sunset and find a hole in the side of a mountain and call it home? A couple of blankets, a few posters, and this place will be as good as new. I mean, how is living in a cave any different from owning a basement apartment? Honestly, a cave is probably cheaper and probably has better air quality. Well, we're going to see how comfy these caves can be with today's list of top 10 scary people found in caves part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, then you should go check that out right now. And if you at home who want to grab any merch should check out the link in the description below and use the offer code MA10. That will give you $5 off, which means you can grab a shirt for only $10, which is an amazing deal. And stick around for the whole list because we are going to be doing some bloopers. I know you guys are a big fan of the bloopers, so we're going to pack the end of this video full of them. You'd be surprised how often I screw up making these videos, and they're gonna make you respect me way less. And without taking any longer, let's get into this list. At number 10 we have the Manhattan Tunnel people. New York is one of the most expensive places to live, and real estate has become a commodity that many people are struggling to afford. So when rent is too high and you have nowhere to run, you only have a few options left. Some people will turn to homeless shelters, but these environments can be very dangerous and often struggle to keep the cleanliness to a level that people find livable. When social services aren't up to par, people don't feel that they have anywhere to go. Some people turn to a life of living in underground tunnels. They legitimately find it safer and cleaner than the shelters, but the biggest problem down there is drugs. Most people who have made the move to the tunnels are addicted to some sort of substance. Every now and again, the New York police will perform raids on these tunnels to push everyone out, but it really just moves the problem to another section of the tunnels. At number 9 we have the SHAANXI cave people. In the province of SHAANXI, China, some people have opted out of living in a traditional home and have decided to dig out their own house. The rock bed in the side of the mountain surrounding the area is softer than usual, and with just a shovel you will be able to dig out a large home area and call it your nice new house. Do you think you would be pissed off by the guy who decided to dig like just right above you and then stays up all night listening to terrible music? Like, dude, you could have dug anywhere. The cave is huge. Why are you right here? The caves are called the Yaodong, and for the most part they are simple, but some people have put in some serious elbow grease to turn them into multi-room homes. If you got a shovel and a good back, there is really no limit to how big you can make your place. People have chosen to make this move because it is easier and more affordable than living in the city. At number 8 we have the boys from Camp Shore in the Philippines. When your town gets hit by a natural disaster, it can be devastating and you hope that you can eventually recover and get back on your feet, but for some people those moments never come. In the Philippines there were two boys who lost everything in a typhoon. It destroyed their home, and because of this they were forced to live in a cave. It was Jason and Juan Garania who were forced to live inside a cave so they could survive. This is really one of the scariest situations that could happen to these two brothers. On the bright side, they still have each other and they're still going to school. The community is raising funds to try and find them a place to live. At number 7 we have the Well Lady. Now what is a well but just a vertical cave? It's basically the same thing, am I right? For sure I'm right because I'm the one making the video. There was a lady in China who wanted to live in the city but couldn't afford the ridiculous rent prices. This sounds like every single person living in New York and LA. She found a hole in the ground, set it up like a bedroom, and then called it home. Her name is Quan Yushi and she is sort of an innovator. I think it's only a matter of time before people in other expensive cities start doing the exact same thing. I mean, is it any worse than living in a windowless basement? At least she doesn't have any roommates. The well that she lives in is not in use, so she's not taking a water supply away from anyone. Her biggest risk is of course flooding. If the city started flooding, her room would fill up with water, which would obviously be very dangerous. This could lead to her drowning. But if you want to live in a city, you gotta be a hustler and you gotta take big risks to get big rewards. At number 6 we have Syrian shelter. Syria has been at war with surrounding countries for years. For the people who no longer wanted to deal with the constant threat of death, there was a few options left. Leave the country or go live in caves underground. There is a whole community of people who decided to use the shelter of the earth to protect them from the travesties of war. They had no option. They didn't want to die and they couldn't afford to leave. Many of these people have families who care about them. Leaving them behind is not an option. At number 5 we have the Bosnian caveman. All I know about Bosnia is that meme about Croatia not letting them use the beach at all or ever want to go for a swim. That meme is absolutely amazing. It's so good, it was all over the internet. Also, I had a buddy when I was in high school who was from Bosnia who introduced me to putting salt on tomatoes and just eating it, which is bomb AF. It's so good. But I also know this guy now. He decided that he didn't want to live in the city and moved into the caves in the mountains. He built his own little hut and then just moved right in. The only problem is the winters are brutal. Let's have a look at his situation. This guy is a trooper.
He's been living in an empty cave he found years ago in Bosnia. He says he was evicted from his home back in 2007 when he lost his job. Since then, he's made this his abode.
He's got a cane, but he doesn't let it slow him down for a second. He has all his blankets and everything ready to go. I will say that this is very dangerous living for a man of his age. If he gets hurt, there will be no life alert in the mountains to come get him. No one will come up to find him. He will just be stuck up there and probably freeze to death. But he is committed to his lifestyle, and I mean, everyone else is eventually going to die too, so might as well do it doing something you love, even if that means living in a cave by yourself. At number 4, we have the VEDDA of Sri Lanka. Some people don't want to join the world of self-driving cars and social media, and I don't really blame them. All these things just really make things more complicated. And there are the VEDDA who live in the forest of Galoya. They have chosen a life that takes them back to the roots. They live in a community that hunts for their own food and will make work of whatever the earth provides for them. When it comes to housing, they have broken it into 2 sectors. Some people build their own homes out of mud and stones, huts that protect them from the elements and wandering predators. Other members get to live in the intricate cave systems. You usually don't get this opportunity until you're an older member of the tribe. The caves are fancy living, so what this tells me is that it doesn't matter how far back in time you go, there will always be a system of hierarchy. Even people hunting and living in mud huts have older people living in nicer places than them. The boomer culture vibrates through everything. At number 3, we have the Orphans of Bucharest. This is a wild story. Back in 1989, there was a new government that took power in Romania. One of their orders of business was to go around and shut down orphanages, which sounds absolutely villainous. I don't know the whole backstory on this, but on paper it looks really bad. You know, those kids don't have any homes and they live in government housing to survive. So let's take that away, the one thing that they have. Well, of course they had nowhere to go. They're orphans. So they decided they would make a community and they all went down into the sewers to hide. And that ended up being their new home. Since then, there have been people living down there all the time, and they continue to call this place their home. It's not a good situation. Most of them don't have anywhere to sleep or any clean clothes to wear. They get all their food from the trash. And it should be no surprise that most of the people living down there are addicted to drugs. Even some of them are born down there and only know a life of living down in the sewers. At number 2, we have the Paris catacombs. If you've watched this channel for long enough, then you know there is a massive series of tunnels under Paris and have millions of bodies worth of remains tucked away down there. There are sections that are littered with skulls and other bones that give off an extremely gothic feel. But what else could be going on down there? There was one summer when the Paris police force went down to explore the tunnels. They came across a full movie theater and a full setup that make it look like dozens of people were hanging out down there. This was so strange, and it begged the question of where they were getting the power from. What electricity was running this whole setup? Then the officers left to contact the power officials to find out where they were siphoning the energy from. They returned with the whole squad and the whole setup had been disassembled. There was no trace of who had previously been there. The only thing left was a note that read, "Do not try to find us," which is kind of terrifying. Some creepy people living in the catacombs. And for our number 1 spot, we have Miyamoto Musashi. This might be the greatest sword fighter who has ever lived. He is one of the most famous people in all of Japan, and his story has been transported into books, television, movies, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had made it into a few video games as well. For those of you who don't know, Miyamoto Musashi was a samurai who lived from 1584 to 1645. He mastered the techniques of fighting with 2 swords and would travel through the land looking for opponents. People who were master samurais or people who had mastered other weaponry. He would challenge them to a duel to the death. In 61 fights, he was never beaten. This guy went 61-0 in life or death battles. Beyond his mastery of the sword, he also wrote the Book of Five Rings, which is studied by some of the most successful people in the world today. The book highlights the concept of strategy, how this is the one skill that Musashi learned, and through that skill he was able to learn all other skills. He wrote this book in the later stages of his life when he was dying from cancer. Most of this time he spent living in a cave. He used it to seclude himself and focus on his meditation. The cave has been named Rigonado, or Spirit Rock Cave. It is now considered a sacred place. Since this guy was one of the most deadly warriors who ever lived, I think he deserves to be on the top spot of this list. Alright everyone, that has been our list, and thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also, if anyone wants some merch, check out the link in the description below. Remember, you can use the offer code MA10, that'll give you $5 off. Until next time, I've been Chadarana, and I shouldn't be found in a cave anytime soon. No, you're not gonna find me in caves. I don't do cave stuff. Bye. For the people who no longer